Did you think it was?
Like a broken soul in a wonderland without angels. That is how I feel when the mirror shows me a stranger. Yeah. And I know they're just fragments of a world where your absence all I get to see. Take me back to the planet where you and I are still meant to be. 'Cause I'm incomplete when you ain't by my side, when you don't wake up next to me.
For you to second I that's I believe it was fate. Meeting you was written in the stars. Girl, you be my one, you be my own. Trust. Promise that I'll never leave you alone. Never. Said you be my lover and my home. So I'ma keep it real with you always. Said I'ma be there whenever you need me. Anything you want, I'll get it. Call me G. You were the woman you said you would ride for, but I know matter the weather and you never leave me. Baby, let us fly without no delay. So when the sun be shining, we can take it easy. Just me and you in some incredible scenery. Yeah. In the night, speaking love, I know you feel me. In the night, when making love, I know you feel me. Before I be without you, baby, it kills me. Yo, I be looking for, I'm giving you the room, babe. Just say the word, and baby, by your side, I want it.
Course. If you're new, welcome to the channel. I am Shark Party. I am a fourth, what's called, I guess, I don't even know if that's the right terminology, but what we're called like a fourth year graduate student. I'm in my fourth year of grad school. So that if you're familiar with that term, that just means I've already completed my bachelor's degree, my 4-year college. I took 5 years to do mine because I actually ended up getting 2 degrees. I tacked on a second degree while I was in undergrad. And now I'm just in graduate school trying to get a PhD. So I have already passed my master's, so technically, or not technically, I do have my master's degree at this point. I'm a graduate streaming guys for that streamer. I'm trying my best, and so quality drops here and there, especially with the gaming. The rig is just it's not good enough anymore to be streaming well. And also, this stream can go smooth. We'll see. Let's see a relay of my own stream on a second device here, just so I could see if if I'm dropping frames really bad or not, because yesterday's stream I had to stop streaming because I just kept getting error codes. So hopefully that's not the case. So far it looks good. So yeah, I'm always happy to hear feedback and stuff like that about the streams. I am trying my best to increase the quality of the streams, but you know, there's a lot of investment, both time and money. But hopefully somewhat soon I can actually do some upgrades to my rig. That way I can go back to streaming at, not back, but actually stream at a much better quality than I'm currently streaming. So everyone so far with some streams. If they have been poor quality, I apologize. So again, I am Shark Party, the 4th year graduate student, and I study what's called social neuroscience, or, you know, we're kind of a branch of psychology, or studies of the mind and brain, if you will. And we're basically answering a lot of questions within social psychology or found in social psychology, and using a lot of social psychological methods to address social psychological questions. But we also take into account, or we like to use, neuroscientific methods. And these methods, people might know them. They might be like, they're considered a lot of different methodologies, but neuroscience, you can consider things like with your neuroscience, and your neural system includes your brain, which is like the central processing unit of your central nervous system. Your brain's here, your spine is connected to it, and your spine has all the branches of all the neurons and stuff, and that's how your body's interconnected. And so we're kind of interested in the brain component, and that's what kind of can classify it as neuroscience. So we are, or I should say, I am a fourth year graduate student in social neuroscience, so welcome. Taco Tuesday, if this is new to you, it's just, I'm not going to do a full explanation of everything right now, again, because if you're used to listening to Taco Tuesday, I don't want to give a whole spiel. But if you're new, I'm just going to give you a quick rundown. This is a really just stress-free chat time. Anyone is welcome to talk at any point. Typical Taco Tuesdays, I've chosen topics to talk about, and I kind of talk to the void, if you will, because yeah, no one's here to begin with, and two, yeah, because no one is here, we don't have an active conversation. But the idea here is to begin an active conversation, and for anyone to just, if you have questions, I have something on my collar, sorry. Wow, I already got it, cool. I got it. Okay, sorry, I'm easily entertained that way. Excuse me. So Taco Tuesday is intended to be a chat, or like a conversation, or like a forum, if you will, just about anything really. But because right now it is a new channel, I'm pushing it and I'm trying to grow it here and there, and it's a little bit of slower process. I right now I'm choosing the topics on a weekly basis or bi-weekly. Sometimes I sometimes miss weeks. Again, I apologize. I'm in my dissertation phase, so there's some days where I just can't stream. So I always apologize, patience and understanding. But yeah, so it's supposed to be a chat. And so today's topic is very fitting. I think a lot of us can talk about stress and coping. I think we've all experienced stress for the most part in our lives, and we've all had to cope with it. Because if you've experienced stress, well, you, no matter what, had to cope with it because you had to deal with that stress. If you're still alive to this day, you are dealing with the stress, so to speak, or you have coped with it. That's what I mean by coping, not necessarily coping strategies or therapy. Again, I'm not just in the sense that do psychoanalysis and diagnose. I can't do that. I'm not even a PhD in my own field. I'm training to be a PhD. I'm just here to talk about stuff, and I'm happy to give scientific perspectives, and I do like giving scientific citations and giving science where I can. But again, the super focused science stuff does happen on Science Fridays every Friday. Is like a similar stream to this. Today is more like just talking, just trying to be low-key chatting about anything, about different topics. Sometimes, like I did one on travel, so yeah, about anything. But I if people want me to, or sometimes I do offer a scientific perspective, because I think, yeah. That's Taco Tuesdays, and so today's topic, we're going to talk about stress and coping. I already mentioned a little bit about what I mean by coping. Like, what do you do when you're stressed out? What do you do to deal with that stress? Whew. So I'm going to let's give it 30 seconds for people to, let's see if anyone fills in if they want to start talking. I'll start the conversation a little bit about what I mean with stress, kind of defining it, maybe using a little bit of neuroscience to define it, or at least that into context, what I mean by stress versus the way you might be conceptualizing stress. And then I'll talk about coping and what that means, and I've already kind of discussed a little bit of its definition, but now I'll go into that and then see if people have filled in and want to talk about it, and start chatting about it. So 30 seconds. See it there, so I can be like, yeah, I gotta remember to drink water. Okay. All right, so I'm going to talk a little bit about stress and what I mean by stress. So if we take biological approach to stress, and think about stress as a physical phenomenon. So not necessarily a more abstract term. Sometimes when some people think about stress, their mind might jump to a situation where they felt stressed. So if you're a student now, your mind might jump to finals or finals time or tests, and how that causes anxiety. So you're stressed, and that's all you can really think about. So that's more of an abstract way of thinking about stress. It's abstract in the sense that it's very context heavy. That stress that you're feeling is very dependent on the context. So I'm going to talk a little. I'm going to take a step back away from that type of context. We can get there if we need to, but I'm going to take a step away from that context, take a step back, and I'm going to just talk about it in a biological sense, in a physical phenomenon sort of sense. I kind of like to think about it in a pseudo-engineer way. If you think about, if you are familiar with engineering and things of like mechanical or civil or those types of engineering, where they will talk about stress and strain, tension, and those types of terms in physics. So you don't even have to be an engineer. You just, if you're familiar with physics and tension and strain and those types of terms, that's where I'm coming at this with stress on a biological organism. So in the engineering sense, stress can be like a force applied to an object. So let's just say you're an engineer, mechanical engineer, civil engineer, building a building, and you have, you're trying to see how much weight a certain building can take before it would collapse. That's essentially, I'm not sure if these terms are 100% accurate. By the way, I'm not an engineer. If there's an engineer here and that's not correct me, I'm super happy to hear it. But basically, I'm using a very loose analogy here. But basically, applying a pressure to those steel beams to see how much they could take before they give in or before they break. That's like saying, like, how much stress can it take before it collapses? So applying a pressure is kind of like applying a stress, and so taking it to the biological organism. So if you think of something, if you are familiar with biology, you might have heard the term homeostasis. So homeostasis is this notion, or you might also have heard the synonym for homeostasis, your circadian rhythm. So this is this instance that you have this biological clock, and you also have this kind of biological tuning that your body likes to be in. And by this tuning, I mean it has like, okay, it likes to be asleep for this many hours a day. It likes to use energy at this time of the day. It likes to start settling down at this time of day. And it kind of likes to follow a process. Your body likes to maintain a certain temperature. It likes to maintain a certain metabolism rate. It likes to maintain a certain heart rate, breathing rate, and it likes to keep these things under control. Through a lot of years of studying the brain, I've just kind of noticed that your brain is what it's trying to do with a lot of tasks. So if you think about riding your bike or driving your car, what it likes to do is it tries to make a lot of things as automatic as possible, because it makes it way more efficient to then run the program of like driving your car or riding your bike. Once it becomes very automatic, it becomes easier. So then you can start to daydream while you're driving a car. So if you remember, when you're learning how to drive your car, you're super focused, and now maybe you've been driving for 10, 20, 30 years, and now when you're in traffic, you can daydream, and your mind and your body just kind of automatically does everything, right? And that's kind of your brain making the process automatic. So you can kind of think about homeostasis the same way. It likes to keep it very calm and predictable. When I say calm, not like in a sense that you're not going to be 1 hour, calm, your heart rate is at, let's just say, X BPM, and then like the next minute or the next hour, it's at 3 times that rate. BPM stands for beats per minute. And then the next hour, it's at 3 times that rate. That would be quite variable, quite chaotic is what I mean. So your circadian rhythm or your biological clock would prefer kind of a more stable behavior and more predictable environment. This is also if you take a really big step back, I'm sorry for taking tangents sometimes, but I think this is fun to connect different sciences together. So if you're into ecology, this is kind of the sense that you can get, or the same type of logic you can get from liking stability in your environment, with whether it's inside you or outside of your body. This is why if you take ecology, you'll start to see that 98% of life, or I forget how much percent of life, it's around 98%, I believe. 90% of life lives at the equator. Why? Because the weather doesn't change, so you don't have to predict changes. So in northern climates, or in northern places and southern places in the world, right, at different poles of the earth, you have vastly different seasons. You have snow. You have 4 different seasons, versus in the center of at the equator, right? Countries at the equator, or the ocean at the equator is very very serene in the sense that it doesn't change very much from month to month to month. The temperatures are kind of staying the same. That allows the body to just say, hey, I don't have to take care of temperature because the outside is never going to change. But in the cold, then your body's like, oh no, like it can get stressed by the cold because the cold, hey, what's up, Geeky? Welcome to Taco Tuesday. Nice to see you. Welcome back. I'm just talking about stress and conceptualizing it as a physical stressor and how stress can be applied to our bodies. Stopping by before going to bed. Cool. Well, welcome. Glad to have you. Always happy to have you here. I'm just talking about stress and how we cope with stress and what type of stress you have and how you cope with it. I was going to cover a little bit about the biological models of stress, maybe talk a little bit about molecules if we really wanted to, because sometimes people can mislabel stress and misinterpret the biological. Like you can read an article and maybe read about cortisol and think, oh, cortisol is an indicator of stress. But actually cortisol is present in a lot of human activities, not just during stressful times. But also, let's just say after exercise, cortisol is higher. So it's kind of like more of an indicator of energy, more so than just stress. So there's a lot of contexts where you can have cortisol present. So that's what I'm meaning. And then I was going to maybe talk about the the biopsychological model of stress and it kind of relates to challenge versus threat. And so how stress can actually be interpreted in one of two ways, right? If you see it as a challenge, and that will actually activate different cardiovascular response, whether you're seeing your stressor as a challenge versus a threat. So that's kind of what I was going to talk about. That's kind of like the breakdown of my chat today. But people are now in the chat, so we can put a pause on the lecture, I guess, and see what's going on. I like the GG logo. I forget how it's Shark. I think it's Shark P5 GG. No, I got it wrong. Hold on, I'm gonna figure this out. It tells me. Oh, it's case sensitive. Okay, Shark P5 GG. Boom. It's case sensitive. Welcome SPS, by the way. Welcome, welcome. Man. Okay. So. Okay, so if anyone in the chat wants to chime in with their stress, if this is I also want to mention to any new viewers or old recurring viewers, if you're but this is your first time hearing it, this Taco Tuesday can also be seen as a space to vent. If you want to vent about anything, even if the topic isn't about stress, you can use this time. I'm trying to open up a channel for anything. I'm trying to make Taco Tuesday literally about anything. That's why the name is Taco Tuesday, not like another Science Tuesday. Because Science Friday, we will talk more about science and stuff. But and I'm happy to talk about science during Taco Tuesdays. But I just want to make sure that's clear to people that you can talk about anything here. It's supposed to be like a free, fun channel to talk about anything. But yeah, I gravitate towards science because that's what I personally like to talk about. So, yeah, so anyone in chat, you're welcome to tell us about if you want to vent. You don't have to feel pressured to chat or to share with us. But if you want to vent, go ahead and vent and tell us how you cope. But for now, I'm just going to continue talking about how I'm conceptualizing stress. So again, I was in the middle saying about the cold and talking about the equator versus the northern climates. So at the equator, you have most life because you have a very stable environment at the equator of the Earth. Right, 98% of biology lives at the Earth, and when I say 98% of biology, that also includes the ocean, so it's a lot of fish and stuff like that, a lot of insects and all those things. They kind of live near the equator. This is where you have the very lush forests. It's very easy for life to live there because it doesn't have to predict if next month it's going to be very cold or very hot and have to adapt towards different temperatures on a yearly basis. So therefore, it can maintain a very stable homeostasis for itself, if you will. So that's kind of the same notion I was trying to get at with our homeostasis. Our homeostasis likes predictability. It likes a pattern that it can follow and that it can make it very like automatic or efficient. My Charizard got his... Okay, kicked him by a Mew too, and now it's blue. Dang! Oh man, feels bad. Feels bad, man. That is quite stressful, yeah. So this is what I'm meaning by stress and stress to your homeostasis. So now let's put it into a personal context or maybe a social context. So I was using cold weather again was kind of like a physical stressor on the body. So again, your body's going to have to react to that physical stressor by compensating by maybe producing more heat to compensate for the extra cold that's about to take on, because your body needs to function at a certain temperature before certain processes start to slow down and maybe even halt. And so it's important for your body to stay at a certain temperature. That's part of homeostasis, by the way. So cold presents an issue for homeostasis in that how are you going to keep your temperatures up if the temperature outside keeps dropping? And if you're unfamiliar with the principle of diffusion, so as your body is heating, what is happening is the heat is escaping your body. You don't have like a closed system, right? You don't have a seal over your skin. Your skin is permeable to the heat, or it allows heat to pass through. So the heat is actually escaping through my skin, and what it's attempting to do, if you will, is heat up the environment. So diffusion is this notion that things go to where they're not, and they will continue to go until it's all equally distributed. So if you think about perfume in a room, you spray perfume, and you start to smell it here, but a person across the room is not going to smell it instantly. They'll have to wait until it permeates or until it diffuses or until it gets to them on the other side. So heat is kind of the same way, where it's constantly leaving my body. So as the temperature gets colder, that rate of it leaving my body gets faster and faster and faster and faster and faster because it's just colder outside. So you're creating a bigger and bigger gap between the temperatures of the external environment and my environment. As the gap gets bigger, the faster the heat will escape my body. So that's how cold presents a stressor to our body. Cold is a stressor in the sense that as the temperature keeps dropping, I have to keep increasing my heat generation, and there's only so much I can do. There's only so fast my metabolism can get to, kind of like an engine. There's only so many revolutions it can go at before it really just breaks and stuff like that, and things just don't work. So that's the way you can kind of think about stressors. And the other way we can think about it is in the social context, right? So I again removed the context out of it in terms of just the biological stressor, so the biological organism, how it can present itself or how stress can manifest itself in our bodies. And if you're familiar with a lot of biology and the stress, before I go on to the social context, I do want to mention about this thing that I mentioned about cortisol. So here's a little bit of neuroscience. So a lot of articles that, at least when I was reading, right now I'm not super involved in this literature of cortisol and stress and the neuroscience of stress. I'm not super involved in that literature. My dissertation right now is in a complete different field. I'm taking a deep dive or a deeper dive into what's called the attribution literature. So it's really different from the neuroscience of stress. But a lot of literature in stress has focused or looks at cortisol. And so if you're unfamiliar with this molecule, don't worry, but it's basically a molecule that's present when you're stressed. And so it's not that hard to measure in the lab. So a lot of research labs use it because it's quite easy to collect and measure cortisol, because you just need to grab saliva from participants, versus other enzymes or other metabolites that you might want to measure as a scientist might require blood draw, plasma, like all these other methodologies. That's really hard to do, really costly. So and maybe participants aren't even willing to volunteer, to be picked and cut and X, Y, and Z. So the saliva is much easier. So this is why you'll see a lot of studies in neuroscience when it comes to stress using cortisol as a marker of stress. The thing that I want to point out, if you're one of those people that has read an article on stress and cortisol, the thing I do want to point out is cortisol is implicated in a lot of human activities. Copulation, exercise. Copulation is a scientific term for sexual intercourse. Exercise, swimming, things like this can release a lot of cortisol into your system. It can be present. So just because there's cortisol doesn't necessarily mean the stress that the way the layperson might think of it. And by layperson, I mean like your average person that's not involved in neuroscience studying stress. Because terms can kind of change and mean different things to different people. That's what I mean by lay people versus like a scientist. They might have the same word, stress, but stress to a neuroscientist might mean something completely different to a civil engineer, which might mean something completely different to, someone on Wall Street. Right. So sometimes we just need to make sure that we're on the same page about our definitions. And so, yeah, to layperson, stress might, like I said, it might be, or it might mean to you, like if you're a student right now, you might be like, oh, stress is like that feeling you get when you're in the middle of an exam and you don't really know what you're doing, so you're going to fail. That's stress. Versus stress to like a civil engineer is like, oh, that's the pressure applied to an object that force applied to an object is stress or strain. You know, and a neuroscientist might say a deviation or departure from a homeostasis can be seen as stress. Or allostatic, what's called allostatic load is also like a stress. So that's what I'm saying here. So to me as a neuroscientist, I'm following that like a deviation to your homeostatic rhythm or your circadian rhythm or your biological clock. A deviation from that is like stress. Okay. Whew. Let me take a quick water break. Whew. If anyone has questions, wants me to repeat anything, I'm also happy to do that. If people are just liking the science I'm talking about, I'm super happy to just continue talking about it. But if you want to chime in, tell us about your stress and how you cope with it. I'm about to start transitioning what I'm talking about over to coping and into the biopsychological model of challenge and threat. I'm about to transition into that. But if you want to chime in, give us your thoughts, go for it. I'm going to take a water break. Taco Tuesday. Feels good to do Taco Tuesday again. Been really busy weeks. Really busy. Okay. So I've already talked a little bit about stress as an applied pressure or applied force to the homeostatic or your biological clock, and so a deviation from that, it's also known as allostatic load. If you're super curious into how that's spelled, allostatic load. Allostatic load, that can be kind of seen as stress. In the social context, I did mention I was going to put it into social context. The social context, and I have already done it actually, is if, like, imagine you're a student about to take a final and you're not super prepared for that, and you counter questions on the exam and you have zero idea what the right answer is, and you really needed to get an A on that test. That is like putting stress into a social context. You're like, oh geez, I'm about to fail. That's like a social context in which your heart rate's beating, you might feel really energized, but in the wrong type of way, like a negative type of energy. That's like anxiety, if you will. That's like stress. That's stress like manifesting itself. That like deviation from an allostatic load. That's how it's manifesting itself in your mind and in your body, right? Because your homeostasis wants your heart rate kind of slow and calm. So it beating really fast is a stressor, right? Exercising is a stressor to your body, but it's not a bad stressor. It's actually a good stressor. But it nonetheless makes you deviate from your homeostasis when you exercise. The same way that taking a test that you're not prepared for makes you deviate from your homeostasis. So, coping. Whew. Where to begin? Where do we begin with coping? So, I guess one way we can begin is kind of like the biological approach again. We kind of approach stress that way. So let's approach coping the same way. So coping in a mechanistic sort of way is kind of this notion of trying to return to your original homeostasis. And so this can manifest in a vast different ways. Some people theorize that depression is basically a coping mechanism with a vast deviation of your homeostasis. Hey, what's up, Vanessa Julia Del 07? How's it going? Welcome. Hi, welcome. Oop. Welcome to the chat. Sitting here talking about stress and coping, kind of defining it using a little bit of science. Doing well. I've been very busy these past couple of weeks. Grad school has been quite heavy, quite stressful. I didn't get to do Taco Tuesday and Science Friday last week, but now I'm doing much better. And so here we are doing Taco Tuesday. How are you? I don't know if you have sound, so I'll type it in the chat just in case. Okay, you can hear me. Cool. You're okay. Cool. Well, welcome to the chat. If you have anything you want to chat about, I'm all ears. If you're just here to listen, I'm happy to continue. I don't want to put you on the spot or anything, but I'm also just that's the point of Taco Tuesdays for people to come and just chat about anything they want. And I'm here as a grad student to listen and talk about it. Hence Taco Tuesdays. Also, the playlist is experimental. The music. I know I keep saying that. I still haven't had a chance to really go through this entire playlist, so it's like I'm trying to make notes of which songs I've been liking for the streams, but again, I apologize if some of these songs are jarring. I'm trying to stay calm right now. What's going on? Do you wanna chat about something? If you want to take it to private messages, because this is live, of course, I need to remind you that all this is live being streamed, and a lot of my Taco Tuesdays and Science Fridays do end up being recorded and put on YouTube. I just want to make that perfectly clear right now. I do have a Discord channel, so if you are wanting to chat about anything with me particularly, but not have it be live, I'm happy to take this like not live. Just a heads up. But so trying to stay calm. So yeah, and if you don't want to chat about what's stressing you, but you just want to chat about calming and coping, I'm happy to talk about calmness and coping, and like it kind of is relevant to talk about the I can never pronounce it. Biopsychological model of threat and challenge. Having troubles dealing with sleepovers. What do you mean? What you're like with friends? You have anxiety? Or just sleep in general? I gotta keep this on the camera just so I can remember to keep drinking water. Let's get it closer to camera. This way, this way, this way, this way. You get stressed when it's time to go to sleep. I feel that. I've had that for a lot of my life, actually. Totally feel that. So does this also happen at home, or is it only when you're away from home? Are you stressed at home when you need to go to bed, or when you want to go to bed as well? And again, I also want to remind you, and the whole stream and everything, I'm not a trained therapist by any means. I'm just a graduate student that's happy to talk about science and just offer third-party perspective. So, okay. So, sometimes what helps me when I want to cope with stress, so it's kind of relevant to the whole stream and the topic of stress and coping, something that kind of can help me when I want to address the problem that I'm having. So it seems like you're telling me these things because it seems like you want to address something, or you have something that is on your mind that might be bothering you, and you might want to reduce that. So you might have some sort of, if you will, cognitive dissonance, some sort of anxiety that you want to address. And something that I like to do sometimes when I feel that way and I want to address an issue is actually start to really think about the problem and put it into more concrete terms. So instead of just it being emotion, I start to make it concrete. I start to think about it and be like, okay, what is causing this emotion? What physically in my environment or in me is causing this emotion? So by that, you can start asking yourself, is it the fact that, like, so you're saying it's worse when you're at a sleepover versus when you're at home? That's what I'm assuming when you say it's worse, because you're doing a comparison there, so that these emotions are showing. So I noticed two comparisons there. The emotions are most showing when you're about to go to sleep, so that means at the end of the day, and it's even worse when you're at a sleepover, so that means there's a social context or a social anxiety involved. So ask yourself, is it the fact that there's friends around, people around? Is it the fact that they can fall asleep and you seemingly can't, and so you're kind of left in isolation? Is it the fact that you aren't home and you're not used to being away from home? You can start to think about it that way. Again, I don't want to get too deep into too much psychology here because I'm not a trained therapist whatsoever. So if you feel like you have a lot of issues, then I'm always going to try to advise like seek therapy, and seek a trained therapist. But again, I'm happy to talk about things, as much as you're willing to talk about it. I'm happy to continue chatting. I just want to keep giving you a heads up that I don't know any actual applied therapy, but this is just what I like to do, and this is just kind of how I sometimes cope with my anxieties and sometimes my irrational fears. That I have a fear, and then I start to think about it, and it starts to seem irrational. Like, why? If everyone else can do it, that's what it might seem like. There's another thing that also can help me cope with my stressors or my fears, is kind of this notion of what's called pluralistic ignorance. And so I'm going to put that into chat. Maybe this will help. Pluralistic ignorance. Let me see if I spell that. There's an X. Pluralistic ignorance. So if you want to Google that, so pluralistic ignorance is this notion that, like in a group of people, you all might be feeling the same way or thinking the same thing, but because you're afraid to express those emotions and confirm like something like the classic examples in the classroom, you're afraid to ask a question because asking it, you're afraid of looking stupid. And so you're like, man, no one else is asking the question means that you interpret it as everyone else understanding the concept and you're the only one that doesn't. So that's why you don't want to ask the question, when in reality, probably a majority of people don't know the answer and probably have the same question you do, but you're all feeling that kind of sense of like, oh, they all know it and I don't, so I don't want to ask the question to look stupid. And that's what it means to be kind of like pluralistic ignorance, is everyone's kind of ignorant to the fact that you're all kind of feeling the same way. So that's the plurality part of it. All right, let's go back to the comment. I'm not used to being away from home. I don't really like being around people, so sleepovers are very bad to work for me. Okay, yeah, that's totally fair. So, that to me makes sense as to why you would say your emotions show more and it's worse when you're at a sleepover. It's just an anxiety manifesting itself, and inhibiting you from maybe being able to fall asleep, or feeling stress when you're about to fall asleep, or trying to fall asleep. And stress, so the thing I was mentioning earlier, I don't know if you were here when I was talking a little bit about stress, is the molecule cortisol. It's implicated in a lot of behaviors and in a lot of it's present during a lot of behaviors, is what I'm trying to say, in your blood, in your system. Cortisol, to me, is like kind of also like an energy indicator. So if your stress is high, sleep will be hard to achieve, or hard to fall asleep, because you do have cortisol and there are other hormones and other chemicals at work. Like, adrenaline can be released when you're stressed, and adrenaline literally like puts you in a fight or flight mode. So you have two modes, if you will, as like your homeostasis. You have like a fight or flight or rest and digest. And so you're trying to be in rest and digest mode, but your central nervous system is putting you into fight or flight mode. So it's kind of, cortisol kind of flips you over to the fight or flight, and that can make getting sleep very hard. So you said when you were younger and it's changed, so it's gotten a lot worse. I mean, it depends on coping and getting over things and healing, or yeah, I guess coping for the best way I could try to come up with this word, for lack of a better term, coping. It can take a lot of time, so how you frame the timeline can vastly matter to see if you feel like you're not making progress or not. And what I mean by that is, what if you've only given a week, but it should take you like a year or something to work on? So I don't know how old you are and how long you've been dealing with this and how long you've been kind of working on it. So it's kind of hard to make a lot of comments about that. And I don't want to sit here and pry into your life and ask about your age and all of that. But just know that some things in the brain, and especially if you are young, they're going to continue to change, and they take time to adapt, and they take time to take hold. Just like going to the gym and trying to work out and tone your muscles, or get bigger muscles, or get in shape, or get your stamina up takes time. Your brain is the similar way. It takes time to make connections, to build connections, to strengthen connections of neurons. It takes time. So Now, the other interesting notion to me that I don't know if you want to talk about is just the notion overall. So, not only is it worse, in a social context, but overall that you're having issues, that you're stressed when it comes to just falling asleep. Because something to note is you're saying it's worse at night, like your emotions show more at night, and that to me makes kind of scientific sense because as you go on through the day, your body's using up energy, so you're getting more and more tired. So the more tired you are, well, the harder it is to cope with things. The harder it is to have energy to devote to psychological processes, to cope with things, to think about things, to feel good about things. It just becomes harder, and this is one of the reasons why we need rest. We need to reset. We need to alleviate those processes and just go to bed and relax and let the kind of auto cleaning process of sleep happen, because in sleep your brain does enter a state, or there are cells at work that are kind of cleaning up um, the garbage of your brain, if you will. There's a lot of trash molecules that need to be cleaned out of your brain, and so that happens during sleep. Also, I want to thank you for sharing this. It's awesome that you're chatting with a stranger about this. I want to just congratulate that. That's amazing. So, um, yeah, I want to make sure I say that to you. That's awesome. It's a really positive step for coping, if you will. Some people do. It helps them a lot to just express what there's in itself, coping mechanism. I over up my emotions. Cover up. Okay. Daytime when people are around, but when I'm alone on nighttime, that's when I stop. Yeah. So this is kind of dealing. That's kind of that notion that you're kind of. It takes energy out of you to fake, if you will, and for lack of a better term, it can take energy out of you to fake your emotions. If you're not feeling a particular way, but you have to look that way, that's an added layer of energy that you need to consume. And so this is physical energy I'm talking about. So like, you're eating food and that's providing energy for you, but at some point of the day, you run out of energy and you need to sleep. Just like exercising causes you to run out of energy and also cause you to be tired. Well, so does just living life and dealing with stress and dealing with and coping with stress. That takes energy out of you. And so, yeah, this makes sense to me why why at nighttime it becomes harder, or you just altogether stop trying to cover up emotions. If you want to test this scientifically, sometimes I do this just for fun, just to confirm things like, oh man, I'm really like, if it's in the evening and I'm feeling like relatively, let's just say, relatively weak, for lack of a better term, to cover my emotions, I try to take a bite out of fruit if it's early enough in the night. Like, I'm not saying do this at midnight and wake yourself up, but fruit, it's one of those things that you get suggested if you ever want to take like a standardized test. If you take classes, one of the things they suggest that you take for like an MCAT or an SAT, ACT, standardized tests that are just long, like beyond 3 hours, because it's kind of a marathon. They recommend that you take a fruit because they have sugars in them, and sugars are fast to combust in your body and they're fast to digest, but they're not sustaining, so they're not as good as like other types of fuels for your body. And proteins take a little bit longer to fully burn and digest and all that, so they're kind of worth more. But sugar and the good sugars, there's also the bad type of sugar that just costs you energy overall to process. So those ones will make you have like a sugar crash and stuff like that. So the fruit type of sugar, the natural sugars from those are thought or said. I don't know the full science behind this one. I haven't read the science myself or done the science myself, but this was something that they were promoting, was take a fruit with you for these tests when you're feeling particularly like stressed and just mentally fatigued and tired, to eat that fruit. So as a scientific test, I propose to you, maybe let's just say it's a little early in the evening and you're already feeling really fatigued to cover up your emotions. Try a fruit, eat it, and if it becomes easier again to cope or to cover up emotions, then you're kind of confirming, yeah, it is costing me a lot of energy to cover up emotions. Like, what can I do about that? Maybe you want to talk to some professional about that. I don't know. But as a scientist, the scientist in me likes to do those things because, one, to me, it helps me cope with whatever I'm stressed with, right? Because I'm identifying my stressor and I'm attacking it. And by attacking it, I'm kind of scientifically testing whether or not that is the real stressor. And that in itself, for me, becomes a fun process of playing around with my variables and seeing, like, if I got it right or not. Like, making a prediction. Like, I think that I can't cope as well with my stressors at night because I'm just completely out of energy. Um, so taking a fruit could theoretically, now I'm not saying there's a direct causal link between eating a fruit and getting energy. People process different foods differently. Okay, so it might not work for you, but it could still be the case that it works for some people. This is the both the fun and the frustrating part of science, is that there's so much variability in the way things work when it comes to the brain and people. So, but it also presents like a fun puzzle, like a really complicated Rubik's Cube of figuring out your exact combination. Yeah, that sounds like a lot of work, a lot of yeah, a lot of energy consumption there. So something that I'm just curious, maybe you might have fun with it. Maybe this isn't the approach. Maybe I'm completely wrong. I don't know who you are again. Um, but try eating a fruit like an apple, something that you like strawberries, raspberries, any of those if you like fruits. Hopefully you're not allergic to them. If you're allergic to fruits, then totally negate what I'm saying. But something that ideally has a higher sugar content, because I don't know about watermelons if they have too much sugar. And obviously don't add artificial sugar to it. I'm saying just straight up the natural fruit. Eat that and see if it gives you a boost of energy when you're feeling fatigued. Not when you're already feeling energized and able to cope, but when you're out of energy and unable to cope. I'm just curious. Thank you for the follow. I appreciate it. Yeah, definitely don't do it at 4 in the morning. That is not the time to do it. Oh, and your phone's about to die. Shoot. Well, I really appreciate the follow. Again, if your phone's about to die, then I just want to mention I'm super happy to talk to you at any point during any stream, whether it's gaming or Taco Tuesday, Science Friday. You're welcome to just vent here, talk about whatever. I'm I'm interested if you do test out the fruit thing, if it worked for you. That would be really, really cool if you kind of note that. But yeah, so I think diving into chatting about why you might get stressed before falling asleep could dive into some personal things, which I don't know how comfortable you are speaking to a stranger that is streaming something online, talking about some personal issues. So again, the Discord is there, but I just, again, really want to stress out that I am not a trained professional in therapy or psychiatry or anything like that. Yeah, that would be cool. I am training to be a scientist. I don't have my PhD quite yet. I'm just here to open up a channel for people to talk to a graduate student. If you want to know about science, I'm happy to tell you what we're currently doing. I want science to be as open and accessible to people as possible. That's one of my goals. So that's what I'm trying to present here. But because I do study brain health, I do study stress, I do study mental processes, I can also chat about it, but in a scientific sense, not in a therapeutic sense. So I just want to make sure that's clear again. But if it's therapeutic to you, I'm more than happy to continue doing it if you find solace or calmness in chatting here in this room. But yeah, diving into why you might be having stressors before you go to sleep, again, that might get into personal issues. So I'm happy to talk about it in Discord where it's not live. But yeah. Oh, okay, cool. I'm really happy. I'm really happy it calmed you down. And again, thank you for the follow and thank you for chatting with us. This was I'm really happy to have met you. And yeah, hopefully you can get some sleep. Have a good evening or morning. So we're coming up on the hour, and I didn't finish talking a little bit about coping. These things tend to go for about an hour, maximum an hour and a half, just because, and the reason I cap them, or I tend to cap them, is just because I do put these on YouTube. So that way, because after like 2 or 3 weeks, I think they get deleted off of my own Twitch stream here. So these do go onto YouTube, and that way I have like, there's a permanent library, and I don't know how permanent that is, but there's a library of all these chats. So, yeah, so I was going to talk about coping. I did get to talk about it a little bit, and I guess talking to Vanessa here, so thank you for chatting again, actually illustrated the way I kind of cope about it. I was going to talk about it that way, actually, how I kind of like to frame my stressors and think about my stressors in a more concrete way, and sometimes doing so makes me already feel more in control, because sometimes we feel anxiety, and you might feel this. You know, whoever you are, wherever you are listening to this, you might feel anxiety and you might not realize where your anxiety is coming from, but it could be the feeling that you're out of control. And so sometimes what helps me, especially as a scientist and using kind of scientific methods and scientific processes, is putting your stressors into concrete terms, thinking, why am I stressed? Where's my anxiety coming from? Take a second, stop whatever you're doing. You're feeling stressed. Maybe you're trying to play a game to distract yourself. Maybe you're trying to go for a drive, go for a run. Oh, I was going to talk about the biopsychological model of threat and challenge. I will talk about that, but let me finish this thought really quick, and then I'll talk about biopsychological model of challenge and threat, and I'll cap off the Taco Tuesday there unless more people chime in and want to chat. Okay, so let me finish this thought. So let's just say you're on a run, you're playing music, you're gaming, you're doing whatever you can to cope with your stress or your anxiety. Stop next time. Maybe again, this works for me. I don't want to say this is going to work for everybody. I'm not a trained therapist. I can't stress that enough. But stop and think, what is actually stressing me? What is it? Let's just say it's work. Is there something preventing a goal? Right? Sometimes when I'm kind of feeling frustrated, I also like to address science again. I go, what is frustration? Well, frustration can be conceptualized as the blockage of goals. Then I say, okay, what's my goal? Oh, my goal is to get more fit, or my goal is to finish this project. My goal is to get an A in this class. My goal is to X, Y, or Z. It could be whatever. Learn this song, perfect this song, get this score in the game. And when something blocks you, you arrive at frustration. So when I start to conceptualize my goals, put things in concrete, and then say, okay, what is actually blocking me? And identify that block, it becomes so much more manageable, and my stress kind of starts dropping really fast. And what is happening is I'm starting to take control over what seemed to be an out of control situation. Hey Hannah, welcome, and thank you so much for the follow. I really appreciate it. And welcome so much. Welcome to the stream. Welcome to the chat. Happy to chat about anything. But anyways, what I'm trying to say is, yeah, so when I start to use kind of a scientific process one is kind of removing myself emotionally, detaching myself, becoming almost like a third party, a detective. I'm trying to take on this detective role and trying to identify who the culprit is, who done it, who made me stressed, who's making me feel this way, this tension. And doing so also is coping. It's already therapeutic in a sense. I'm removing myself from the stress already and analyzing as a third person. And that is already helping me feel better about it. Good morning. It's evening for me, but good morning and welcome. Or would it be morning? Morning. So Southeast Asia, Australia, New Zealand, I think. Hawaii. No, Hawaii's. No, wait. I'm way off. Morning is this way. Sorry. Wow. Europe? No, it could still be Southeast Asia. Yeah. Oh, okay. Okay. Same time zone as me then. Well, good evening. Wow, I totally got my time zones mixed up. Okay, sorry. Well, welcome anyway. Oh. I forgot where I was at. Oh yeah, acting like a detective on the stressor. Yeah. So again, and then just identifying. So just a little background. I have studied stress in the lab. I did join a behavioral neuroscience lab that studied stress and the impacts of stress on memory. We did use animal models when I was in that lab. And now currently as a graduate, so that was when I was an undergraduate student. And now currently as a graduate student, I do have a line of studies that is looking at social identity and stress, and how your social identity and who you are and context, and how the context of and how it interplays with your social identity can impact or can influence stress or mediate stress, if you will. And stress can mediate a lot of different processes. I'm stressed. You're very stressed? Are you very stressed right now? Is it maybe 2 kids? Oh man, you have 2 kids. Yeah, I have no idea. So I have zero experience or anything to share with parenthood. My stress is very different from kids. Yeah, a lot of my friends are starting to have children, so they're sharing their stressors with me, but I have no idea. But yeah, feel free to vent here, and if you're curious to hear anything about the I'm happy to listen about it, scientifically or non-scientifically. Yeah, I'm super happy to talk about anything. So vent. They're both 2 already. Sweet. Okay. But I hear it's terrible 2s. I hear 2s are not the best times, so you have to do a lot of coping. What do you do to cope? And again, if I ever put anyone on the spot and you don't feel like answering, you can feel free to say no comment, and I will not take offense, like at all. I can continue talking to the void if I have to. I'm already used to talking to the void. And welcome if you're new to the chat. Welcome to Taco Tuesday, chatting about what stresses us and coping. And I'm interweaving science here and there. So if you would be so kind to share, how do you cope? You have no idea how to deal with it, do you? Okay, so maybe talking about biopsychological model of threat and challenge may help a little bit, maybe guide, I don't know. But as you can see, I do have my guitarele here, and I have a ukulele over here. This is one of my coping mechanisms, music, actually. And I know it sounds cliche and corny, like, oh, play music when you're stressed, but there's actually some science behind it. Now, I'm not the full-blown expert of coping with stress. I study stress on the side of causes of stress and the detriments to stress, biologically speaking, to the brain, and also behaviorally speaking, to the social person. So that's kind of the way I'm studying stress. So coping and the outcomes of it. And again, I'm not a therapist. I'm not an applied psychologist. I'm a graduate student, PhD track, so researcher in social neuroscience. But I mentioned music because, and I guess I can give an anecdote of the chat I had with the guy, one of the lead researchers of the biopsychological model of threat and challenge. So I'm going to put that into chat. Biopsychological model of threat and challenge. I'm putting this into the chat in case anyone wants to just copy paste it. And this is by Blaskovich. So I actually, that's one of the authors. I don't remember all the authors on that model, but Blaskovich, Jim Blaskovich, is the scientist behind it. I actually got to talk to him in person, and really cool guy. He's really funny, and just like, you could just tell he's just passionate about science, and he just really loves being a scientist. And when I was talking to him, it was at like a social event, and so we're just kind of having drinks, and he just goes like, "Hey, what do you do when you're stressed to cope?" I didn't know, by the way, that this was Jim Blaskovich that did this paper. I didn't really know about the paper at the time when I was talking to him. Biopsychosocial. Thank you, Youngie. Welcome. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Bio. So we got another graduate student here. He is very knowledgeable in what I'm talking about. Biopsychosocial model of threat and challenge. Thank you so much for that correction. And welcome to the chat. It's great to have you. Anyways, so he's chatting to me and he goes, no, don't feel dumb. That's not what this is about. This is about just chatting. He's a friend of mine, Youngie here. It's not that you're supposed to know about this model. This is very niche, very, like you have to be in our science to know this. So actually most people in the world would have no idea what we're talking about. And that's what I'm here to say. I'm here to share our science with everybody. I don't expect people to know these things. If you do, I'm happy to talk about them. And you might even know more than me. I don't know. But please don't feel dumb at all. That's not the point of this chat. It's supposed to be the opposite. It's supposed to be just chatting and having fun. So I'm chatting with this guy, I call him Guy. I'm chatting with Jim Blaskovich here, and I mean, I know of him. It's not like I didn't know who he was, like complete stranger. I knew that he was Jim Blaskovich, and I knew he was a researcher. I just didn't know about his model, the biopsychosocial model of threat and challenge. I didn't know that was his, and I didn't even know what it was. But he basically, during the party, he says, "Hey, so what do you do when you're stressed? When you're a student and you're going through finals, what do you do? Do you go for a run, or what do you do?" And I was like, "No, actually, I don't really exercise. I tend to play music. I don't know. I listen to music, and I just kind of try to chill and try to get my mind off things, or maybe try to think of what's blocking me while listening to music." I don't know, or sometimes I occupy my hands, so I'll cook. I personally really like cooking. I love cooking. It really helps my mind solve some things, so that because I just sometimes feel that I need to occupy my hands, and then sometimes I'll even watch Netflix. While this is one way I cope with stress sometimes, is I actually go cook some stuff, because oh man, I'm getting to a way huge backstory. This deals with my love for organic chemistry as to why I love cooking. So I'm not going to get into that story unless people really want to hear the story of organic chemistry and cooking. But anyways, so I was telling this to Dr. Blaskovich. I'm going to try to be respectful to him. He is quite an intelligent guy, so I want to be respectful to him. I'm not trying to degrade him in any ways, but we're just kind of used to calling people by first names. That's why sometimes I just kind of automatically say that. So Dr. Blaskovich, so I give him the response. He's like, oh, interesting. Yeah, a lot of people actually tell me that they go for a run, or they go to the gym, or they do X, Y, and Z. But that deals with exercise. They might go play a sport. And yeah, my research is showing that that might not be the best. You know, like exercise is indeed healthy. He's not saying that it's unhealthy at all times or anything. But he's saying, you know, during under certain contexts, under certain situations, stressors present like vasoconstriction. And if you're unfamiliar with that term, vaso is kind of like this medical term for veins, so vascular, and constriction, you know, tightening. Smoking depends on what you're smoking. I guess that would be the follow-up question. But yeah, so basically to apply then a stress, so this is going back to the definition that I gave at the very beginning of the stream, talking about stress and an allostatic load to your homeostasis that you have as a biological organism. So allostatic load, again, was defined as a deviation or a difference from your kind of biological clock or your circadian rhythm or your homeostasis. So deviation from that is kind of seen as a stressor. So what he's saying, what he was kind of telling me during this little chat that I had was, yeah, so if you're going to run, for example, you're applying an added load to your veins because you're pumping blood through them, but they're already constricted. So it's actually going to strain or stress out those veins. And he wasn't really talking about how much damage it's doing, but that under other contexts that doesn't necessarily happen. You have what's called like challenge context. So sometimes you have like vasodilation to allow more blood flow. And so this kind of makes you feel more confident and better. And I forget what all the attributes are. Maybe young kid Hong here can tune in if he wants to. I don't want to put him on the spot either, but he also knows what I'm talking about. Again, not to put him on the spot, but yeah. So there's a difference in challenge versus threat. So under threatful conditions, we can get like vasoconstriction and stuff like that. I smoke anything. Yeah. So yeah, smoking some things would probably cause a drop in anxiety to cope with stress. I would probably agree with that. So I gotta hydrate now. So I'm hydrating now. I'm gonna pause. I'm gonna switch this song. It's a little jarring for me. We're talking about stress and stuff, and it was like way too fast. Gotta leave this here. So yeah, so going back, let's kind of bring this a little bit more full circle. Yeah, so one of the things I already mentioned, some of the things I do to cope with stress. One of the things I do is music, and the thing I like about music, I'm gonna kind of go on a slight tangent here. I would just want to drop in a little positive or a little, I don't know, plug. I want to plug music really quick. Like, even if I'm not a musician by any means, by the way. I love music. I have a lot of instruments, but I'm not a musician. I don't know music theory. I can't sit there and be like this master musician and do things. I just really like to play music because it's how I cope with things. It's how I like feel like I have kind of control over things again. So again, with this mentioning, when I was mentioning kind of those models of aggression and frustration and how you can have your goals and they can be being blocked by things, and how I like to sometimes separate myself from my anxieties and stress by acting like a scientist to figure out, okay, what is stressing me? And doing that process of doing that is making my stressors be more concrete, and in a sense is allowing me to feel more in control of my situation. That in turn can reduce my stress. That's the way I kind of feel music can also apply that similar type of feeling, if you will. You kind of have control over the things that you're playing, and you can start to get creative with your music. And so, and I've been playing music for quite some time, and the reason why I like music so much is I'm not a disciplined person with music. It's not like I practice every day for an hour. This is like my level of music, however good I am, I don't know how good I am relative to people because I'm not a musician again. I'm not like in the medium of all these musicians, but that's just the accumulation of years and years of just playing whenever I felt like it or whenever, yeah, literally whenever I felt like it. It's just a coincidence that I feel like it a lot. I feel like playing music a lot, but I have no formal training. I never took classes. So I just want to mention one of the coping mechanisms I do as a graduate student, but also as a person in general. I'm not saying, I'm not speaking on behalf of all grads, but one thing I do is music. So that's why I like to have, guitars around me. This is actually a guitarlele, not a guitar. It's a 6-string ukulele. And I got my 4-string tenor ukulele ready over here. So I like to have these on hand. They present very nice breaks. So I'm happy to hear from anybody how you guys cope with stress or what's currently stressing you out. If you feel like venting, go for it. We're here to chat about it. Let's talk about it. It's Tuesdays. I don't have any actual tacos. I miss tacos. And again, if you're just tuning in now, welcome to Taco Tuesday. Sitting here, I go for a walk outside. Dang, I guess a walk's not bad. I was gonna say, what would the model predict, that that's bad or good? But I guess if you go slow enough and oxygenate, because the thing is, so I don't know how much the Dr. Blaskovich's model speaks to this, but I do know, like, just from studying the brain and I also have a degree in biology, so I kind of study a lot of cellular activity. Is oxygen is really, really, really good for the brain, obviously, and so breathing can start to like enforce more oxygen supply to the brain, which in turn can help you cope. But what if you're doing a vigorous walk or an uphill walk? Like, do you limit your speed? I'm curious. Like, do you keep your BPM, your beats per minute of your heart below a certain threshold, or do you just ignore the whole biopsychosocial model of threat and challenge and the whole notion of exercising when you sleep? I mean, sleep is a coping mechanism, actually. Oversleeping can be, a way of coping with stressors that maybe are deemed a little bit too overwhelming, so you kind of enter that sleep mode. It's a little bit too much, so it's too much energy. I don't know how much you sleep. Maybe you are sleeping a healthy amount, and napping is just your cycle. Like, that's part of your cycle, and that's how you function, and it works for you. So that's awesome. I don't know. But I mean, even napping is probably, in a sense, for some people, probably really good therapy or very good coping mechanism, because if you're the type of person that, you could sit there in silence. I'm not I'm not that type of person. I can't sit there. Ooh, 3 hours a day. That sounds really, really low. Not so good for the circadian rhythm of the average person. Again, I don't know who you are. Just regular speed. But you're like super tall and stuff, and so like I guess regular speed for you is like really fast for me. I was conceptualizing how you walk and how I walk, and I was like, man, you go fast, but never mind. It would be still regular speed for you. Yeah, 3 hours a day. Yeah, I don't know who you are personally, but yeah, that's sounds like very little. Oh, but you're like you're a parent of two young kids. I see. Yeah, connecting the pieces. Like half an inch taller than you. Okay, I don't know how much taller you are than me, but like for some reason you like look like you're 4 meters taller than I am. 22 feet. I don't know. But yeah, you're probably like more than half an inch. Like a full-blown inch. 2 inches. No idea. Meditate. I can't meditate. I can't. I just can't. Yoga, I can't do that. Like silence causes so much anxiety in me. I just can't. I can't do it. Music is the closest I can get to silence. Unless the only time I need silence, which is weird, this only happened to me recently in my life. This was never a case when I was an undergrad or a high schooler or middle schooler or any type of other education setting. This only happened during grad school. Was sometimes I actually need to turn everything off just to be able to write, but it's only for writing. But even in college, I guess it's a way different writing that I'm doing, way different challenges. I was gonna say in college, even for writing, I could the only thing I couldn't do with music was if it had lyrics. I couldn't write anymore because that would mess with like it would. I don't know. I would just get distracted by lyrics. I would always have like non-lyric music. But now even in grad school, sometimes I can't even write with just non-lyrical music. I can't even do that. I have to have it off. But that's the only time I can have silence. Otherwise, yeah, yoga and meditation, like I can't. My mind is too active. I just can't do it. Can't sleep without white noise. Yikes. I don't know what that's like. I have a really bad habit before I fall asleep. I know it's a really bad one, but it's kind of my ritual. I'm on my phone before I fall asleep, and it's a really bad habit. I know it, but that's just I just start reading things and I start to find and it's just like social media type stuff. This is why I know a lot about this is actually one of the reasons why this channel was born was because I am so used to going to social media right before I go to bed, and a lot of social media was starting to really upset me. Like the more I got involved with grad school, and the more I got involved with science, and the more I see how science is done, the more I learn. And I'm talking like over years of experience and living and stuff. And the more I see people trash talking science and education online and being super against science, the more I was like growing frustrated with that. And so I was like, I gotta vent somewhere. So this channel was kind of born. It was born for many reasons, but that's one of the reasons. I'm on my phone before bed. And I'm on social media, and I try to find posts, or I try to find like social media that has a lot of text to it, so I have to read. And then I always find myself just falling asleep when I'm reading. And I know it's like I could use a book or reading, but like my mind doesn't again, when it comes to reading a book for falling asleep, I get more anxiety. I don't know why. It has to be like social media, something like that I can process super easy and not have to think about. Maybe because I'm just so tired. I don't know. I don't know too much about that. Not an expert there. But yeah, I'm on my phone. But yeah, for me, for coping, I also know one of my other coping mechanisms isn't the best, but gaming. I game. And actually, another coping mechanism I do is actually streaming and chatting about it. Even if I'm not directly chatting about my personal everything and all of that, just talking about stressors and the scientific notion, or sometimes just even for people really unfamiliar with social psychology literature, sometimes just chatting about science and the stuff I do is reaffirming to me. And I'm like making it like I'm verbalizing a reaffirmation. If you're unfamiliar with that term, it's kind of like there are components that I do like about myself. So anyone can really do this if you have components you like about yourself, if you think you're good at certain stuff. Reaffirmation is thinking about those things, like so affirming is like the fact that you think you're good at it, or that you appreciate something about yourself, or you like something about yourself. And reaffirming is remembering that you like that or remembering that you're good about those stuff. So, or it's kind of like I don't know how to put it. I'm not super into motivation literature. Maybe Young Kid Hong here knows more about it. I don't know, but it's sort of like an ego booster, self-esteem booster mechanism, or motivational mechanism, or motivational mechanism that you can use. I think it's sometimes applied in therapy, this reaffirmation process. So for me, sometimes coping, sometimes streaming, whether it's gaming or Taco Tuesday or Science Friday, sometimes streaming in itself is coping for me, because it can be reaffirming, it can be venting for me, it can release the valve if we take on Freud's hydraulic model of aggression. It can release some pressure in my system, if you will. So. I don't know who else is in chat, but if you're been listening and you want to share how you cope with stress, I'm happy to hear it. But again, you don't have to. Gaming, I'm kind of split, because it does if I'm trying to go to bed soon, sometimes the gaming does wake me up. And so that's kind of a problem with it, but and it can be addicting. Yeah, yeah, no worries. I'm not trying to put you on the spot at all. I'm not saying it. I'm also just trying to mention to anyone else that wants to share um, that wants to also just share. I'm just trying to open it up. Anybody, uh, anybody can share. And yes, of course. And also, that is such a good point. I'm glad you bring that up because when I talk about stress, I also want to make sure I want to set up stress in a context that it's neither positive or negative. It's an event, like a physical event. So you can, if you want, to say it's like a release of cortisol. Stress is more than that. It's not just cortisol, and cortisol is not only implicated with stress. Cortisol, like I've been mentioning, cortisol is present for a lot of different human behaviors. Um, but stress can be very good, right? Stress can actually help memory. It can improve your memory in certain situations. Chronic stress can impair memory. So this is going to be the case for a lot of things in biology and for a lot of things in life and for a lot of things just in the universe in principles of physics, principles of chemistry. This is going to be true for a lot of like psychopharmacology is too much of something can be bad and too little of something can also be bad. So you're aiming for like a balance or a harmony point, if you will. And stress is kind of the same way. So your circadian rhythm, your biological clock is trying to stay in harmony, trying to stay in a very predictable cycle, and that incorporates stress. Stress is positive in the senses that's what kicks you out of bed sometimes. Yeah, go for it. Take your time. Um, Stress can sometimes be the thing that gets you out of bed. That's your energy in the morning. Now you might frame it as negative, like, oh, if I don't get out of bed, I get fired. But nonetheless, you're getting up and being active, and you have energy to do stuff. Um, so that is a good stressor in a sense. That's a motivator, as young kid here is saying. For some people, stress is a good motivator, and that's very true. Stress is an incredible motivator for some people. Too much stress, again, can be bad, and prolonged stress can be bad. Studies even in my old lab have shown this. Chronic stress impacts the hippocampus, and hippocampus is a memory center. And so particularly, if you really want to dig into the details of the neuroscience here, particularly, the cells we looked at were the CA1, the cornus amons area of the hippocampus, the CA1 and the CA3 regions. And what you see during chronic stress is these neurons like retracting. They're like if you think about neurons like trees, here's the ground and they sprout out. Like here's the ground or the basal or like the cell membrane layer from which neurons can like root and put their root or like grow out of and stuff like that, if you want to call it that way. Okay, this song's a little jarring. I'm gonna switch it. Sorry. Okay, so basically, yeah, with chronic stress, they start to retract a little bit. So that's where I'm saying like too much of something can be bad, but too little of something can also be bad. So not having enough stress can lead you to feeling like really fatigued. Maybe not get out of bed so much. You're in bed maybe a lot of the time. It's maybe you don't have enough stress in your life. So sometimes when we talk about stress, it's important to note that I'm not meaning this in a negative way. I mean it in a physics sense. Like it's a physical application of pressure, and pressure can be a good thing. It can be a bad thing, and it can be a good thing. I've had these ideas I've been wanting to play with. Something I like to do in social psychology sometimes. This is so off topic, but I just want to mention it because I have young kid here. Yeah, that's actually something. Like when you have no stress in life, it can actually be stressful because there's like kind of like a lack of motivation, like kind of like a lack of being, lack of sense of doing something. I don't know. Yeah, I feel that though sometimes. Sometimes, not all the time. Sometimes when I have no stress, I just sit there and like, oh my god, this is so calming finally. But obviously context matters of like what I had just gone through when that calmness comes. But anyway, I was gonna mention because I was starting. Okay, this one's jarring too. What is going on with this music? Okay, this sounds a little bit better. Okay. Oh, now I lost my train of thought. Shoot. Oh no, in social psychology, something I like to do. So I really like physics personally. I just really love physics. I just had a deep appreciation for the labs, especially like you learn something in lab, and the thing that was hard as a student to connect with biology sometimes and psychology sometimes was that you learn all these theories and all this science, but you never actually get to see it for yourself. And so you kind of start to feel like if science teaches you to like you always have to have evidence to believe in things. But then you're just being fed all of these things. I don't want to use fed, maybe that's a bad, but you're being taught all these things by professor, but you're never actually doing it for yourself. It's kind of like you're not doing a scientist's job. So I really like labs for that reason. And physics was one of those labs that really was concrete about like, here's the theory, predict everything before you even do it. And then you do it, and all these physical principles, exactly how you predicted it, are coming like true right before your eyes. Like, wow, my math, everything checks out. It all worked the way it was supposed to work. Like, it just like, to me, it was just so like, I love science. Like, it just made me appreciate and admire science so much. Like, the fact that humans came up with mathematical models to describe this, to describe nature, and be able to like predict to such a high accuracy, it's so cool. So something I like to do sometimes is take those same formulas that I'm like really attached to through my labs and stuff, take those formulas and see if I can apply them in a social context in a more abstract way. And pressure is one of those things I've been trying to apply in a social context way. Like, we use pressure a lot in social context, right? You have social pressure, peer pressure. And so I'm just wondering, like, can we come up with a conceptual model that resembles the physics model for pressure, which, if I remember correctly, is force over an area. So F over A, and F equals to mass times acceleration from Newton's second law. F equals ma, mass times acceleration. So could you start to derive a similar social formula, like the mass of the crowd would increase the amount of pressure being felt? Because as mass increases, you get more pressure. So regardless of the area is maybe how much you are attached to that crowd. So maybe it's your in-group. Man, this is like so much fun to theory craft here a little bit with physics. So your in-group could be like how attached you are to your in-group is the same resemblance to the area. So it's if F, I'm going to put the formula here so I can have it. P equals F over A, where F equals ma. Okay, so this is what we know from physics. If I have I'm going to Google it really quick. I want to make sure my pressure formula is right. Formula for pressure. I'm pretty sure it's force over an area. Yes, I'm right. Okay, force over an area. Okay, so so in social context, maybe A. So under social psych, I'll put social context. Maybe area is your what would you call it? Your like how much you identify with that group. So your group, what is that called? Group like attachment, or what is that called? Social change is a function of social pressure at a right time and a right place. That's the area. Man, this guy, I am so glad you're here. This is cool. Leon Fessinger. If anyone is unfamiliar with that name, he is kind of like the father of cognitive dissonance and social comparison theories. At the 1960s, 70s, I think he had some publications. But yeah, cognitive dissonance, Leon Fessinger. So if you've ever heard of cognitive dissonance or have learned about it, this guy. Anyway, so then area is kind of like how much you identify with a group, and then force, which is mass times acceleration. Mass is the I guess the size of, like, I'm talking about literally testing F equals ma and P equals F over A in a social context, like literally manipulating the social group, like putting 2 people around the subject, 3, 4, and seeing if it follows the same trend that it would in physics, right? The more mass you have, the more, like, the bigger the M value of the F equals ma, the bigger the F value is, the more pressure you get. So the more pressure you get, the more predictable the behavior can be. Because if I could pressure, let's just say I'm pressuring you into, I don't know, running a mile, and if I don't put any pressure, then I'm not going to expect you to run a mile unless you just want to get in shape. But if I put a crap ton of pressure, like if you run a mile, you get $2 billion, then I can predict that most people would run the mile. That's what I'm kind of getting at, is to what degree can we work with physics formulas to describe social contexts as well? I love playing with those formulas. I remember I took a class in motivation, and then to the professor I talked about this. Actually, I wanted to write a paper on this, and they were getting too confused that I ditched this notion. But I was actually bringing up P equals F over A, and I was asking him if anyone in social psychology had ever tried to study like social behavior using a pressure framework. So might write this down, but it seems like there's already work on it with this framework here with Leon Fessinger. Social change is a function of social pressure at the right time, at a right time, and at a right place. Whew, we're at an hour and a half. This has been a fun Taco Tuesday. Really, really got into some science there, some literature, and chatting and venting. Very cool Taco Tuesday. I guess I didn't put in the chat what P and F and A all mean, so I just in case. I don't know if anyone even cares for it, but I'm trying to say pressure equals force divided by area, where force equals mass times acceleration. And this is Newton's second law. So I just want to make sure that's clear. In case anyone was trying to follow and my letters got lost. But I don't even know if people even cared about that. But I'm just going to put that there in case. Yeah. So that's something that went on a completely different tangent. I know, but it's kind of interesting. We can actually tie this back a little bit to stress. It's kind of interesting to think about it because stress, at the very beginning of the stream today, when I was kind of talking about stress and conceptualizing stress and talking about it in a biological sense and comparing it to how engineers can talk about stress, how it's like an applied pressure, there's the term pressure. So now we can relate it to these two formulas here and maybe try to apply it and see what we can make of it and have fun with the notion of stress and stuff like that. I don't know. I just love talking to people and just sitting here talking about variables and playing around with variables like algebraic manipulations. That's one thing I loved about physics is the mathematical formulas became Lego blocks to me that you could algebraically manipulate and play around with your physics formulas to understand nature. And that's what I loved about organic chemistry, and that's what I love, and that's just what I love about learning is when you reach a certain spot in terms of knowledge, you start to be able to see how things you can play around with them. And I love being in that seat when you can play around with your Lego blocks and build whatever you want. So I feel like within a very finite, very confined space of physics, obviously I'm not claiming I'm the master of physics, but within what I was presented, I felt I got to that level of mastery, if you will, that I could play around with my Lego blocks that I was given. But I don't have all the Lego blocks of physics, so it's not like I know, I don't know, quantum mechanics like a leading astrophysicist would. So I'm not claiming I know physics. I'm not a physicist by any means, but I'm just saying of the things that I do understand, I love playing around with. Whew, I'm talking a lot. I guess that's the point now. I've gone through almost a whole water bottle, and I started with a full water bottle at the beginning of the stream. Whew. So, tying this to stress, where we were talking about stress being a pressure applied. So I guess you could just replace P for stress and stress, no, but then how could we build a physics model that could then predict coping and help you decrease the pressure? So to decrease pressure with this formula, to decrease that, you need either F value or A value to increase or F value to decrease. So your F value is your mass. So your social pressure, yeah, of course, you can alleviate social pressure by alleviating or reducing the social size. Okay, but what about, oh, how attached you are? I guess, yeah, how attached you are, that's a reframing technique. So you could do a reframing and be not so attached to identity. But what happens if it's a very critical identity? Then you can approach chronic stress levels and very, okay. I don't know. Anyone can chime in, by the way. I'm just sitting here playing around with some variables for fun. SPS chimes in with the all wisdom word wiener. Quite the nugget of knowledge there. Thank you for that input. Oh man. If you're just joining us now, we're talking about our stressors and how we cope, what we do to cope. We've talked a little bit about the science of stress, the science of coping. Talked a little bit about something called the biopsychosocial model or biopsychosocial model of threat and challenge. So like when you are stressed, whether it's conceptualized or perceived as a make you respond biologically or physiologically different. And I talked a little bit about those differences. One of the major differences, hallmarks, is vasoconstriction versus vasodilation. Stress can break you, bro. Yes, it can. But it's also, not having stress in your system can also break you. So you need just the right amount of stress. But yes, a lot of stress can break you. I have seen it physically happen. I've seen brains, literally, I've seen, you know, the physical brains that we extracted from rats because we chronically stressed out some rats and compared them to non-stressed out rats to see differences in the cells of chronically stressed rats versus non-chronically stressed rats. And there's massive differences in the hippocampus. So it literally can break you in a sense. And it doesn't permanently break your, like in the area in the brain that I studied, or that we studied in the lab, was the hippocampus. So it doesn't permanently break the neurons because we did do studies of recovery and how long it takes to recover from certain chronic stressors. So yes, the neurons can recover from the chronic stress, but yeah, living under chronic stress conditions can impair neuron function and neuron health. If you're super unfamiliar with neuron, that's like the cells in your brain or cells that make up, that constitute kind of what's called your central nervous system. So your spinal cord has all these like cables connected, and your spinal cord's connected to your brain, of course. That's like your spinal cord's like your central highway for all your signals. So how does your brain communicate to your hand to move? How does my brain communicate to my mouth to talk and do all these things? It's through neurons. And you have very specialized neurons. Yeah. Yep. Yeah, a lot of wise Confucius once said sometimes it... Wait, what? Hold on. Is this a... Sometimes it not... This hurts. I can't get through the sentence. Sometimes it not be like it do, but it is. Okay. But yeah, you need to find el equilibrio. Welcome if you're a Spanish speaker. Bienvenido. Yeah, a lot of those teachings, a lot of morals, the stories, a lot of what's it called? Philosophies center around this notion of harmony and balance and things like that, and they're not entirely wrong. Like psychopharmacology, chemistry, just diffusion. Even if you like, just look at a very basic process of physics or chemistry, whatever I don't know what science you want to classify diffusion under, but diffusion is this notion of achieving balance. Again, if you're very familiar with diffusion, if you spray perfume in let's just say you're in a closet or in a small room, you spray perfume, it's not like someone on the other side of the room is going to instantly smell it. It takes some time for that perfume to permeate through. Wow, 2 people want me to hydrate. Hold up. Hold your horses. I don't even have enough water to hydrate twice. Or, okay, we can take water. If I put a drop of color, I could actually scientifically demonstrate right now, actually not even scientifically, but I can objectively demonstrate diffusion. If I put a drop of water in the water, a drop of dye, color dye, like let's say green, it wouldn't instantly full turn green. You would see the green kind of start to diffuse through, to kind of permeate through, and then eventually turn the whole water green. So it reached an equilibrium between the super dark green, or the concentrated green, and the non-concentrated non-color. Here, they reach equilibrium and become a light green. He also said, please consume the compound of H2O and fuse it into your system. I'm going to use this for metabolism right here. Metabolism, if I remember correctly from my biochemistry courses, metabolism requires H2O at a lot of steps to function. So If you've ever heard dietitians say, drink a lot of water to lose weight. Well, I think theoretically speaking, this is what they're trying to say. I don't know if those dietitians themselves understand the whole biochemistry behind it, but I think as knowledge is handed down through like professors, college students, and whatever to businesses, to professionals, and those professionals get trained by X, Y, and Z, whatever. They might not know the whole biochemistry behind it, but I think maybe that's where they're stemming it from, is because water, I'm pretty sure, like 99% sure, that is required, is a needed molecule for metabolism to work. And if your metabolism isn't working, well, how are you going to burn energy? I'm out of water. I got yellow carded? Okay, fine. I'll take a step out. Jeez. I'm going to take a step out to get some water. I will be right back getting water.
I could wait 1,000 days. You never wait for me. You never wait for me. Even when I ran away, you're all that I could see. You're all that I could see. When I could hardly walk on my own, I had to lift myself out of the trench below. Having enough to let you go. Let you go, let you go now. You love me right for a minute. Even though I tried so hard to forget it, all you do is pay.
All right, I am back. We have way more water. I think I still owe one more hydrate now redemption of coins or whatever. You did yet another one while I was gone? Are you kidding me? I can't keep up with all this water drinking. I'm getting too hydrated. Talking about equilibrium and homeostasis and achieving balance and harmony and all of that, you're making me get too hydrated. How many coins do you have? Jeez. Okay. All right, I'm back. So what were we chatting about? What do we want to chat about? Trying to think. I might kind of. I don't have much more else that I had really in mind to talk about. We are going to be approaching soon the second hour. Así. Puedes morir si tomas demasiada agua. So for my non-Spanish speakers, you can die if you drink too much water. So these people here are influencing unhealthy behaviors. I'm just kidding. I'm not gonna guilt you with that. I'm talking a lot, so my mouth keeps getting dry. So I apologize. But yes, you can die if you drink too much water. You over dilute, your blood doesn't function as well. I don't know all the mechanisms as to why, but I think it's a lot of the reason. Que te mata. I remember you wrote that on our lab walls, and I'm like, why did you write that? That I will kill you. And you're missing the accent, but it's okay. That's all I know. Hajima. In Korean. So young kid Hong here. He's teaching me. No, he's not really teaching me actively. But I learn a couple of Korean words, and in return, he knows way more Spanish than I do Korean. So he knows more words in Spanish than I do in Korean. But this is one word I do know, Hajima. And that's about it, I think. Oh no, I also know Anyang, but I have to give like 90% credit to Arrested Development for that one. So, and like 9% to like K-pop, and then 1% to Young Kid Hong there. You get 1% credit for my knowledge on Anyang. So anyone else, anyone have anything they want to vent about, chat about, talk about? Maybe you have a coping mechanism that works particularly well for you. Maybe you want to share that. I don't know. I do want to mention that if anyone wants to chat about stressors because they feel they want to vent to some stranger, but they don't want it to be recorded or live streamed, but they still want to chat to a stranger, or like me, for example. I'm not saying you have to chat to me. There's a lot of avenues you can take. But if you do, there is a Discord available. To join it, you just have to type in !Discord in the chat, or just go below in my About section. You'll see the Join Us. That badge itself, you can click it and it sends you an invite to the Discord. And there you can just feel free to like say what's up and say you'd prefer to, I don't know, if you want to talk privately, you can send me a personal message on Discord. If you don't have Discord, and you don't even know what that is, it's like Skype, but I mean, I learned of it and use it because of gaming is how I like talk to my friends and other people is through Discord. So yeah, if you want to talk to me but through other mediums, you can always pitch an idea and I can see if we can make it work. Just a heads up, because again, right now we are live, so anyone can see what you're saying if they are coming across this channel. And Taco Tuesdays and Science Fridays are usually recorded and put onto my YouTube channel, so that way they don't get deleted. Like that way they're there, because when I talk about some science stuff, sometimes it's nice to have that record. And so those go onto YouTube. So again, if you wanted to talk about stuff but don't want it to be recorded and go on YouTube, we don't have to talk about it here, but that's if you wanted to talk about it but not have it be recorded. We can talk about it somewhere else. Whew. I don't have much more else. I mean, I'm happy to talk about stress more in detail if people want to talk about like cortisol, adrenaline, or epinephrine if you want to get more technical about adrenaline. The HPA axis if you want to hear about the HPA axis is the oh my god, the hypothalamus. Wow, I'm getting tired. Pituitary and adrenal gland, HPA. Whew. So those are two parts of the brain. The adrenal gland is not in your brain. It actually sits above your kidney, and it's called kind of the axis because it's like whoop in a line. And they all influence each other. They kind of cause a cascade of events to ultimately and result in providing more energy for you to then engage in either fight or flight, if you will. So I'm happy to go into details of stress to that level of detail, talking about the individual components of your stress system, or we can talk about stress in the fight or flight system. Exactly. So your parasympathetic versus your sympathetic nervous system. Other people have heard, you may have learned this under various different types of names. You also have what's it called, the 4 F's, so fight or flight, versus the other ones are what are they? I just know it's fight or flight, rest or digest. The 4 F's is the other way of saying it. Fight or flight, that's 2 F's, and then it's effing, so copulating or sexual intercourse, and what's rest but F form of rest? I don't remember. But yeah, you might have heard of this. And so I'm happy to go into details about stress. That way, we can go into stress in more psychological, cognitive sense. I don't know too much about that because all my lab experience with stress has actually, I could talk about stress from more current studies that I'm involved in regarding social identity and stress. We can, if people want to vent about their stress, we can talk about their stress, or again, coping. We can talk about coping. The world. The chat is yours. Chat. People in chat. And again, hopefully this Friday, I think this Friday I will have a talk. I do want to mention for anyone that's really new to this and likes Taco Tuesday, I also tend to stream when I say, no, never mind. I also stream on Fridays, something called Science Friday, where I do talk about way more science stuff. It's not like completely, it's not super broad like Taco Tuesdays can get. Although Taco Tuesdays do involve science here and there because that's just what I do as a living, basically. And this is just what I love too. Science Fridays will basically choose a topic. It's usually chosen based or inspired by science talks that I attend on Fridays. As a graduate student, I attend talks that are given each Friday for the most part. Some Fridays there isn't a talk, so I might not have a Science Friday on those Fridays, or I might just choose a random or have an open discussion on those Fridays. But a lot of the Fridays, there is a designated speaker that comes and talks to our department about their science, and these speakers are like guests from different universities that can be all over the world. And so they're just talking to us about their science. That way we can learn about what they're doing and kind of exchange ideas among the scientific community. So I just wanted to share what is kind of currently happening in our science in social psychology or neuroscience. Or cognitive psychology. Sometimes we get scientists from different branches too. So I just wanted to share that with the world and make it a little bit more public and more accessible. And that way people can, I'm not going to play a game of telephone. I'm not going to report what those scientists exactly are saying because, you know, I have a faulty memory. So I don't want to just misinterpret things. But I just want to bring up the topics and chat about it with people. So, for example, one of the researchers talked about implicit bias. So I had a Science Friday about implicit bias, what it is and how it's measured in the lab. And we talked about it. So if you are liking science, if you're new to Taco Tuesday, you've been liking the science stuff, then for sure tune in for Science Fridays. That'll probably be way more cup your tea. But yeah. And if you don't really like the science components, then Science Fridays, yeah, it focuses a little bit more with science. But the chats are still the same. And the atmosphere, I'm trying to establish it to be exactly the same. There's music. I typically have like a PowerPoint slide or something, somewhere I can draw. One of the times I talked about statistics, and I was talking about how having a base knowledge of statistics can be helpful, even if you don't use statistics at your job or anything. But like when you want to interpret information or stuff, how certain entities can manipulate statistics to warp your perception of certain things. So I had to chat about that. So basically I just had paint and I was drawing distributions, and that tended to be, again, like today, low key, fun. And during any of my streams, we can pause and chat about something else completely. It doesn't have to be on the topic that's listed up there. Hold on, can I get it right? Yeah, right there. Boom. Our stress. We can talk about anything else too. I'm mentioning all these things because we're almost at the second hour, so I'm kind of out of everything that I wanted to talk about and chat about. But again, I'm just kind of sticking around to see if people have comments, thoughts, questions, if they want to chat about anything. Otherwise, I'll probably be stopping the stream somewhat soon. Hopefully everyone's Tuesday is going well. If people like to talk about stress, I can just continue to do it, because it seems like I've also seen just on social media people appreciating what's it called? Or not appreciating the line and stuff like that. So also open segments like this, even if it falls on a different day. 1 second. I need a second really fast. Okay, I think my camera might, yeah, you can try it really quick. How do I cope with stress? So if my camera goes down, I'm still here, just so you know. My camera might go down, it might not, I'm not sure. Oh, there it goes. Okay, well, how do I cope with stress? Sorry for the camera, it's paused for a second. Okay, cool. I have this guy here. I actually have a lot of instruments that I like to play. I'm not a musician. I just really like music. It provides a space for my hands to do something, keep them busy. I like cooking too. I cook. It depends on what stress I'm feeling. So I've talked a little bit about the like threat versus challenge and like how I had a conversation with a professor, and how he mentioned like during certain when we're stressed under certain contexts, it's actually not the best for a vascular system for you to go exercise, to like run or do like strenuous exercise. It's not the healthiest. So but yeah, so depending on the stressor, sometimes yeah, I love snowboarding. Before COVID times, I used to play, team sports, so volleyball and soccer are things that I just really like to play. So yeah, that's kind of how I cope with stress. But the thing I usually run to, and gaming. Gaming is another way I cope with stress. My main go-to is usually music, playing or listening. And then cooking, those two. I just find that like occupying my hands when I'm feeling stressed, and this stress that I'm talking about now is the average stress that I feel is usually through grad school, like the pressures of grad school, the difficulties of grad school. And so that's the stress that I'm kind of coping on a daily basis. Other times stressors can arise from like, I can get stressed when I feel like I know some people are going to laugh at this, but sometimes I feel like I need to move, and so that's a stressor in a sense, that I need to get my blood moving, so I just do jumping jacks or something to get rid of that tension. So the stress that on average I'm dealing with is from grad school, and that's kind of a tiring type of stressor, and something that can mentally fatigue me. And so I'll be sitting there writing and typing and trying to think about ideas, or trying to capture what I'm thinking on paper, because I'm trying to turn it into paper. And so sometimes I'm just stuck. I hit writer's block. And so sometimes just occupying my hands and doing something else, maybe going for a walk, getting some oxygen in me, helps me kind of reset, cope with the stress. Sometimes playing music, sometimes if I'm like feeling negative, playing sad music like allows you to kind of harmonize with it. Like you feel like something else. The way I at least feel sometimes with music is like, hey, this is kind of capturing the way I feel, that maybe sometimes words is hard to capture. And so it helps you kind of express yourself in a way that you don't have to use words. So music can be helpful to me that way. So sometimes I use music in that sense too. So not just to deal with like stressors from school, but also just life stressors that can be emotionally taxing. Music can be very like healing for me, if you will, in that sense. And lately I bought a drum set recently, and I've been really enjoying that, because like like I mentioned, I like cooking as well. I like having an environment in which I kind of understand my building blocks. So just like cooking, you have all these ingredients, and I just want to play with these ingredients. I want to play with these factors. So music presents notes with which I can play and create an infinite number of possibilities and have fun. And it's my own domain to kind of be a master of that domain and have control over things. Because again, sometimes we might feel stress without realizing it, because we're kind of losing control over our situation, and losing control of our situations can feel very stressful and induce a lot of anxiety. So sometimes cooking, playing the guitar, doing a sport that I'm already like decent at, and I've already mentioned a reaffirmation process. So sometimes reminding yourself that you're good at stuff can be coping in a sense, can be alleviating of stress. So yeah, I just go and play the drums, and the drums I'm really new to it, so it also helps me cope, because it presents a different type of challenge, but it's not so hard that I quit, because I'm used to kind of music and keeping tempos and stuff like that. That translating from guitar to drums wasn't the hardest for me personally. And I'm not a good drummer by any means, but like I'm happy with my progress in drumming is what I'm saying. Like I'm never stressed when I'm playing the drums. So that's kind of the way I stress. That is sometimes I get to sit here and express kind of, sometimes I will vent to my stream about some frustrations that I dealt. Like, man, I was on the internet and I saw people trashing science so much, and I just want to say, like, guys, like science is a process. It's not a belief system. We base a lot of our not on belief or bias or like inklings. We don't just go with our gut feeling. We need evidence to. So I sit here. Long story short is I sometimes sit here and I can stream. So sometimes I choose topics that can be related to something that I encountered in everyday life. I'm trying to think of a solid example. Like, oh yeah, there's like people talking about some situation with social identities online, and so I brought up implicit bias. Or no, cognitive dissonance. Sorry, not implicit bias. I brought up cognitive dissonance as one of the talks for, I think it was a Taco Tuesday, and talked about that. And it would like help me cope, because I was like, man, if people only knew there's actually science. Like people talk about like, oh, I think people do this, and they have their like lay theories. And by lay theories, I mean like you have your own explanations as human beings. Sometimes we like to explain you know, our nature around us, our environment around us, without any formal science being done. We just go, oh, that happened because of this, and we're kind of satisfied with our conclusion, and we move on with our life. I forgot why I brought that up. Shoot. Wow, I just drew a massive blank. Whew. I think it's getting to about that time where I've been talking and streaming for too long. I lost my train of thought there. Where was I going with that? Yikes. Yeah, sorry. I was just talking about how I use my streamed event sometimes, and I don't sit there yelling. I'm just like, hey guys, this is cognitive dissonance. Oh right, I remember what I was trying to get at is that people are talking about their late theories online, and I'm just trying to sit there. I'm like, guys, like this is actually studied. It's awesome that you have an interest in it, and that sometimes is how I feel stress. Is I get really excited and I want people to know about the science, and it stresses me that I can't. Like I want everyone to just know, and it stresses me in a sense that I feel like there isn't enough voices out there talking about science and the awesome things about science. There isn't enough voices on social media out there voicing like, hey guys, like if you want to actually ask a scientist, like I'm here. So I just felt that stress, and so that's where I feel my stream sometimes is a coping mechanism that allows me to express that and express like something and share, I guess, with everybody something that I really like, which is science. So that was a really long answer. Sorry for that very long answer. And if you need me to talk in Spanish, I'm happy to, but for the most part, I'm going to stay in English because this is an assumption, of course, is that the majority of people listening are English speakers. But I can talk in Spanish if really need. Okay. Cool. Whew. Yeah, and the other way I cope is I behave as a scientist towards my own problems and towards my own stressors. And when I say that is I try to like take a step back from, so I'm feeling stressed and I go, okay, let's pause my world, take a step back and say, what is stressing me? Why is it stressing me? And how can I reduce the stress? And so those are all questions. So I have an observation, I'm stressed. So I'm using the scientific method, and the scientific method begins with the observation. I make an observation, a step is, hypothesis, prediction. Right? Why is it happening? Formulate them and then test them and so on and so forth. This isn't a whole hypothesis testing lecture right now. So I kind of try to follow the scientific method when it comes to my own stress. So that's another way I cope with it. And in doing so, again, helps me feel more in control of my stressors. It doesn't work 100% of the time, and it might not work for 100% of the people. I'm not here to say I know what's right, and I'm not a trained therapist again. Yeah, mindfulness works for a lot of people as well. That's another technique. I'm not very familiar. I know of the literature on a surface level because I have to TA. I'm a teacher's assistant for a class where we have to kind of teach a section on our own. And that class, and I frequently have to teach this section. I'm frequently a teacher for this class. It's called Advanced Research Methods in Design. So basically it's a class for college students where they have to do science from beginning to end. So they formulate their own scientific question, they make their own experimental design, they go and run their own experiment, they actually collect data, they analyze the data, and then they have to go present these data at a mock conference. So it kind of simulates science from beginning to end. From, you have an idea that you want to test out, and you're going to go, and then to the end where you're trying to publish it, because you also have to write a paper in this class. So you're trying to publish what your findings are, and you also go talk to other scientists about it in conferences. So hold on, but as you said, it can be different coping mechanisms. Yeah, exactly. So stressors can be good and bad too. Some stressors is good to have, some stressors can be bad. Exactly. So context can really matter. So yeah, again, I was mentioning mindfulness. So a lot of students gravitate towards mindfulness for their projects. They really like it, and partially is because one of the limitations of the class is you can't run any experiment you want. You're limited to doing online studies and surveys and questionnaires type things. And so mindfulness is one of those manipulations, like asking people to exhibit mindfulness and see if it has an effect on stress, for example, is one of those just easier to implement manipulations for the class. So that's where I have some level of knowledge of mindfulness, because when students choose projects on mindfulness, I have to kind of know a little bit, because they read articles and I have to read their ideas and their science regarding it. And when you write your own article and when you're trying to publish, you do what's called a literature review. In a literature review, you're kind of writing about what's currently known about a particular topic. So this is why I have a superficial knowledge of mindfulness. But yeah, it is different stressors. So again, stress can be presented in different forms, just like pressure. I've been mentioning stress kind of as a physical phenomenon. Pressure can be applied in many ways. For example, here's pressure being applied as a fist, so the area of my pressure is much greater on my thing, or as a finger, so the area is much less. So those are two different types of pressures. Stress is no different. You can have stressors from your relationships, and those can be your friendships. When I say relationship, it doesn't mean romantic necessarily, but it can also be romantic. It can be from work, and it can be manifested and presented in very different ways. So that's kind of the point of today is, allowing people to just talk about your stressors. How do you cope with them? Because we all experience it differently. And some of us experience it very similarly. And we approach it very similarly. Or some approaches work for a lot of people, but not necessarily for everybody, of how to cope with stress. Whew. So comments, questions, thoughts, those are all welcome. Yeah, breathing is, so the thing I like about breathing, and the reason why like walks can sometimes help for some people, is that walking or just stepping outside and taking deep breaths, like walking kind of can force more oxygen blood flow. So oxygen and blood flow is important for your brain and brain processes. So sometimes you can start to feel stress. It could just be an alarm system. So stress can sometimes just be a sensor that you're missing water. A headache is kind of a form of stress, right? And headaches can sometimes arise just because you're dehydrated or you're hungry or you're actually lacking oxygen to your brain. So sometimes just taking a pause and breathing deeply can just provide a little bit better oxygen flow. I don't know to what degree and how significant that changes if you just do like one deep breath. But yeah, people report, like from what I can recall, people report feeling, much more calm after doing a couple of breathing exercises before they get back to whatever was stressing them. And the part of the reason why, like the way I kind of understand why that can help people is because, yeah, you're providing oxygen to the brain. Yeah, your frontal cortex requires a lot of power, a lot of protein, and a lot of oxygen. Oh, my camera paused again. Huh. It's still broken. Oh, okay. Well, I'm still here, but yeah, my camera's paused, so it'll be back in a second. Hopefully. I'm gonna take this opportunity really quick. Take a bathroom break. So I will be right back, everybody. I'm gonna actually switch the screen to be right back. So I'll be right back. I'm gonna go to the bathroom.
like it was yesterday. I know it's not the same, but I'm still behind you every step of the way. Look in yourself and I'll be there, I can guide you. All the love is the same. If they send for me tomorrow, even if I leave right now, you'll find comfort there in knowing whenever in doubt, you can find me when the lights turn out. When the lights turn out, you can find me when the lights turn out. When the lights turn out, you can find me when the lights turn out.
So I said, no, 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 it was supposed to be my pentakill. Why did you do that to me? I killed, I know, want to free for champions. I can't believe you're trolling. No, it was supposed to be my pentakill. Why did you do that to me? I killed, I know, want to free for champions. I can't believe you're trolling.
Wait a minute!
So I said, no, 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 it was supposed to be my pentakill. Why did you do that to me? I killed, I know, want to free for champions. I can't believe you're trolling. No, it was supposed to be my pentakill. Why did you do that to me? I killed, I know, want to free for champions. I can't believe you're trolling.
And I'm back. Took my sweater off, but I'm back. Whew. I used a little restroom break there. Welcome back. If you're just joining us, we've already talked quite extensively on stress and conceptualized a little bit of physical stress and try to remove the negative content or the negative connotation that sometimes stress has. There is stress that is positive for us, that is good for us. And we also talked about coping, and some people talked about what they do. Some people have talked about their stressors. So anyone is more than welcome to chime in right now with their stressors or what they do to cope with stress. Otherwise, I don't really have much more else to talk about. We're almost at 2 hours and 20 minutes, when these typically go for an hour to an hour and a half. This has been amazing, though. I really, obviously, I stayed here because I really enjoyed this talk, this conversation. Awesome that people are chiming in. I really appreciate everyone, inputting and talking. Really appreciate you guys and you girls. I don't know what you all are. Appreciate everybody. This has been awesome. So, yeah, but I did do. I already gave my 2 cents regarding what I kind of had in mind to talk about today, so I apologize for the silence now. But I'm just kind of chilling and seeing if people want to vent or not. If not, I think I am gonna end the stream. And I'm working. I'm trying to find out like what I can do right now to fix gaming streams. I think for the most part, I'm gonna have to start halting gaming streams because none of my games are really functioning very well when I stream. I'm gonna try to work on it, but otherwise, I'm gonna have to stick to probably just Science Fridays, Taco Tuesdays. But I might start doing impromptu Taco Tuesdays, meaning if like people like these stress sessions. I can start just doing like open chats instead of gaming streams. Just fill in all the random times I'm available to stream. Fill those in with Taco Tuesdays and Science Fridays. So as always, I'm really happy to hear feedback, comments, anything for improving the streams. I'm constantly working on trying to improve it, but again, I'm also in grad school, and so there are weeks where there's not much coming out of me because I'm focused on my energy and time is going into graduate school things. So I'm at graduate school, so I do appreciate all the patience and just the continued support for this channel. So I do want to thank everybody and thank all the new followers, but also all the old followers that stopped by as well. Thank you all. If you didn't follow, but you still came and listened, thank you as well. Appreciate it. Yeah. Mil gracias. Gracias por venir. Gracias por los comentarios. Y que tengas buenas noches. Buenas noches. Perdón. No he hablado español no sé cuánto tiempo. Ya me hace falta practicarlo más. Pero mil gracias y ojalá nos veamos pronto. Este viernes creo que sí va a ocurrir un Science Friday. I'm just saying that right now I'm on track to pick up my similar routine. I'm going to probably do the Science Friday. I know last week I didn't have a Taco Tuesday or a Science Friday. It was just a heavy work week. So this week I don't anticipate that. So I will have a Science Friday. That's the projected plan. I don't know the topic yet. I'll post that to Twitter beforehand. You don't have to follow me or anything. You can just show up if you don't mind. But if you want to know the topics beforehand, I tend to post them on Twitter. My Twitter lately hasn't been working, so I'm also trying to figure that out, but I haven't invested any time into that. So, but yeah, anyways, thanks again. And if you're listening to any recorded version on this, if you're listening to this on YouTube, thank you very much. You are a champion, and your views just continue to give me motivation to continue to do these. So again, thanks to everybody. Have an awesome Tuesday night. I'll see you in the next stream. Bye-bye.